All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Arnold Smith, and I am the President and Chief Visionary of Connection Apps, Inc. And this is a webinar about how to break relationship patterns that don't work. I am super excited to share this information with you. I've been working on this for many years, and I just love helping people with this. So big shout out to Eric for inviting me to join to help promote this program, and looking forward to sharing some fantastic information with you. Looks like we're slowing down on the people arriving, although they're still coming in. So welcome everybody who's here. But I think we'll just go ahead and get started just so that we're honoring the time of everyone who's here. So the first thing I want to share with you is why relationships are like ice cream cones. And a relationship is like an ice cream cone because if you leave it long enough, it won't be there when you get back for it. But it also requires constant attention, or you might end up with a sticky mess. And you know, we don't want sticky messes in our relationships. But it also requires the right kind of attention. Because if you just licked your ice cream cone on one side, you're still going to end up with a sticky mess. And this is just a fun way to say this is about helping you to give your relationships the right kind of attention so you don't end up with a sticky mess. Since the Super Bowl was just played and the Lombardi Trophy was just awarded, I thought I would quote Vince Lombardi: "Excellence is achieved through the mastery of fundamentals." And so this is what we're talking about today. This is not about the flea flicker of relationships, to continue the football analogy. It's not about some trick play that's going to work sometimes and at other times it's going to be a complete disaster. This really is about the fundamentals that work with any relationship, and it is going to help. It's what helped Vince Lombardi win championships, and it's hopefully what will help you win as well. So just a big thank you to Eric Lawfom. I've been following Eric for a couple of years now, and I'm a huge fan. I just think that he, for those of you who don't know Eric Lawfom, he's an international sales trainer and just a fantastic guy. He puts out so much fantastic content all the time. You really have to, if you don't know him, you have to know him. And for those that do, you know how much of an inspiration he is. And so as passionate as Eric is about helping people with sales, I'm as passionate about helping people create behavior change in their relationships. So Eric, thanks so much for being here and for being kind of my co-host today.
Arnold, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for all of our participants. You know, to create an extraordinary life, a big part of that is relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship, a business relationship, a relationship with a friend. And as we all know, they can be very complex. And when we come to classes like this and we learn from experts like Arnold spent several decades learning the finest distinctions on how to improve relationships. He has a tremendous webinar. I want to acknowledge you guys for being here today. And Arnold, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So many people are experiencing friction in their relationships because of the circumstances. The pandemic is challenging everyone. So I'm hoping that when you, at the end of this webinar, you are going to have some really specific tools that are going to help you with all that. So you're in the right place if you're married or in a long-term relationship and you really love to have a great relationship. You're in a great place if you're a manager and you want to have some tools to motivate your team. You're in the right place if you're in dating or in sales and you want to have a hack that quickly makes people like you. If you're an employee and you want people to love working with you so you can advance your career faster, you're in the right place. If you're a business leader and you want people to love where they work, the fundamentals I'm going to talk about today are going to help you with that. And lastly, if you're a parent and you want your kids to be happy and confident, funny thing about kids is they do what you do instead of do what you say. So when you have these fundamentals in place, they will too. So what you will learn today will positively impact any relationship. And what I love about what I'm going to teach you is it not only impacts any relationship, but it also helps you solve relationship problems without working on them directly. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating that you ignore your relationship problems. If someone comes with you a request to work on a problem, if you ignore them, that's called stonewalling, and it's really detrimental to relationships. However, sometimes working on the problems of your relationships actually is one of the worst things that you can do, because you get locked in issues and you never get to experience the great parts of your relationship. So I'm going to talk about many examples where people who have used what I'm going to teach you today in their relationships, and problems that were really complex got solved without actually working on them. So before we go on, I'm just going to tell you a bit about myself, my story. For the past 20 years or so, I've specialized in people development, culture enhancement, and customer service. And first I did it with one company, and then I've done it with many companies. And for the past 10 years or so, as a consultant and corporate trainer, I became more and more convinced that people didn't need just more information. They actually needed help implementing that information. And so that's what I've been focusing on for the past several years. How do you help people make lasting change so they get the results not just for a few days, but for their entire life? So fast forward a little while, and at this time, I'm working for myself, and I've left my high-paying, secure job, and my second child is born. Now, I've always been very proud of my relationship with my wife. It's been a source of great pride. And during this time, though, I gotta be honest, my relationship kind of started to fall apart on me. And it's understandable with all the stresses, but it was something we worked on it, and yet we couldn't seem to get over the hump. We kept arguing about little things. One of us was always in a bad mood. Issues that we normally would resolve easily kind of lingered, and often we just felt like roommates instead of a couple. And so this was a problem for me that I really wanted to solve. But what I knew is that I wasn't going to get less busy. Here I was now with 2 kids, a growing career, and I had to figure out a solution that was different than the way that I was doing it before. Because the reality is, going on great dates and having weekends away and, dinner parties and people over, all that stuff became way more difficult. And now with the pandemic, man, I'm so glad that I figured this stuff out before, because it needed to be a solution where that wasn't it. And so this is when 2 worlds collided for me. I'd already been studying how companies create great corporate culture, and how do you have employee engagement. So I was deeply involved in that. But now I really focused on studying, what do the most successful couples in the world have in common? What were the habits that were present in their relationship? And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, I've read all these books, and I still read every day, but I'm going to teach you what I've learned so you don't have to do the same thing. So I'm going to encapsulate this in a small amount. Now, of course, I could probably do 100 hours of webinar, but I'm going to condense this into a really simple solution for you. So really what it comes down to, what I call the interpersonal mindfulness hack. And I love solving big, complex problems with very simple solutions. They're very elegant. And so this is what I mean by the interpersonal mindfulness hack. It's about generating positive interactions in the micro moments between people. Now, although that isn't a cure-all, it does impact every area of your life, in every relationship. So I'm just going to check the chat here. Oh, Dr. Gottman. Yeah, fantastic, Sherry. So the thing is about this positivity in these micro moments, it doesn't happen by accident. It only happens through a conscious choice. And that's why it's so important to understand the patterns that are running our relationships. The patterns that, I discovered that I had fallen into some patterns in my marriage that were really impacting our ability to stay connected. And I was completely unconscious to them. So what we're going to cover today is how to break patterns, because ultimately, if you're in these patterns and they're unconscious, your relationship is going to continue the same way. We're going to talk about what patterns to break. So what are the things that are automatically causing friction in your relationship, and what should you do instead? And last, I'm going to talk about an easy way to understand how to break those patterns and create new ones. Now, I have two outcomes today. I'm going to give you the essence of my years of research and my passion, and I'm also going to offer you a solution of what I built to help you take advantage of that. It's up to you whether you want to do that. And of course, I've been learning from Eric, so I know that I've loaded this with golden nuggets, this webinar with golden nuggets. So throughout this presentation, you are going to get a ton of aha moments or actionable items that you can use literally tonight. So let's start with patterns. What does it take to break a pattern? So the first thing is belief. Now, for many of you, we start with this belief that we are a certain way. And, we think that I'm going to try and be better at sales. Sometimes it takes actually an identity shift. We need to think of ourselves like not I'm trying to be a better husband or wife or partner, but I am an excellent partner. Being that instead of trying to be that is called an identity shift, and it's one of the ways that you can really change the way you break a pattern. If you still think of yourself as I am this way, trying to be something different, it'll really impact your ability to take action. So you really need to be in your mind, believe that you are that. You are a salesperson, you are a singer, you are a musician, you are a great partner. Now, the second thing that you need to believe is you need to believe that small changes over time will have a big impact. In much of our behavior change, when we do that action, when we do 10 sit-ups the first time and think, great, now how come I don't have a flat stomach? Well, of course, that's not the way it works. So we have to believe that making these small changes will create the results we want over time. So, number 2 is awareness. Human beings are designed to be mostly automated. This is a biological drive. We are designed to be as efficient as possible, which means that as soon as possible, our brain says, let's make that a habit. If we can implement a pattern instead of an action, we'll do it every single time. So most of the patterns that run our life are unconscious patterns. And if you want to make a change or break a pattern, one of the first steps is you have to become aware of the trigger point. And at that moment, you have to assert your will so you can make the non-automatic choice. So awareness is really key to breaking patterns. Number 3 is structure. If you don't have a structure for making change, a lot of times you'll start the beginning of the day, you say, okay, today I'm going to drink more water. And then you start your day and you get busy and you go, and by the end of the day you go, oh yeah, I was going to drink more water. If you don't have something that'll keep that change in place, the chances of you actually accomplishing that pattern change are greatly diminished. So having a structure in place to help you make that change makes a massive difference. Number 4, it needs to be easy. For a lot of us, if we want to make a change and it's difficult to do, we're not going to make the action. When it comes to that moment of truth, when you finally got that awareness, if you then struggle to figure out what action to take, you're not likely to take it. I'm going to share a behavior model from one of my favorite professors, B.J. Fogg. He's a Stanford professor. He's been studying human behavior for 30 years, and I love the simplicity of this model. So for an action to happen, you need to have 3 things happen at once. You have to have motivation, you have to have ability, and you have to have a trigger. Now, most of the time, we don't notice the triggers because they're unconscious. Now, if you've got high motivation, but it's really hard to do, when the trigger happens, you still might not take that action. But if it's easy to do, even if you have low motivation and you get a trigger, then you're more likely to do the behavior. So you need all 3 things for the behavior to happen. So you want to try and make sure that when you're making changes, start as easy as possible and you're more likely to break that pattern. 5 is routine. I don't know how many times you've been on a webinar or a training and you said, and if you could just give me 15 minutes a day, I'm going to change your life. And I always get upset. I thought, oh yeah, 15 minutes, I can do that, or 5 minutes. But it's actually incredibly difficult to change your routine. We are creatures of habit. And so if you are going to make a change, you're way better off to integrate that change into a routine and attach it to an existing behavior instead of trying to add to a routine. You're way more likely to take action if you do 20 push-ups while you're waiting for the shower to heat up than you are, I'm going to do 30 minutes at the gym 3 times a week. It's way easier to do the first one, and if you do that, you're way more likely to take action. So those are 5 ways to break patterns. And I love this quote from Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. If you haven't read it, it's a fantastic book. You know, studying success for over 30 years and being pitched on all the ways you can be successful, this is what he came down to. Is that you'll never change your life until you've changed something you do daily. The secret of success is found in your daily routine. So not only are we talking about fundamentals, we're going to give you a strategy that integrates seamlessly into your routine so it's easy. So you don't have to think about a big, complicated strategy. Just going to check the chat in case my sound is dying or something like that. Yes, thank you. Example of an easy change in a relationship. So what I'd like to do is, you have a question. I'm going to do that in just a second. I'm going to give you exactly specific things. If you've got a question, please use the question and answer function in the webinar, and then I can go through and we can answer them all. So if there's something that's going to come up, then do that. So if there's an issue that you need me to address right away, use the chat. But if it's a question, throw it in questions and we'll get it answered at the end. All right, number 6 is persistent. One of the major reasons why people fail to make changes because they don't stick with the action long enough. So what that means is that when you're making a change, a habit doesn't take 21 days to form, contrary to popular belief. That came from a plastic surgeon in the 50s who noticed that it took his patients about 21 days to get used to their new limb. The latest research says it takes on average about 66 days to change a pattern. And in reality, no one knows how long it'll take you to change a habit because they don't know about the inner workings of your brain, how entrenched, what triggers there are for your behavior. But generally, persistence is key. If you want to break a pattern, you have to think about this as a long-term strategy as opposed to just trying to do it for a period of time. And the most important thing, and most often missing when we're working on a habit or change, is enjoyment. Most of the time when we're trying to make changes, it's about, eating better or exercising, and we actually beat ourselves up because, trying something new is rife with failure. The chances of you failing are huge at the beginning. And oftentimes what will happen is we'll start beating ourselves up for not meeting our own expectation. And that is completely counter to how our brains work when it comes to developing a habit. A habit doesn't form from repetition. A habit forms from a craving for a reward. And when we beat ourselves up for not meeting our expectations, we're actually associating a negative feeling with the change that we want. And so we actually are programming our bodies biologically to avoid that as opposed to do it. So it actually makes it way harder. So if you want to make a pattern change, you need to find a way to enjoy it. And this is why sports is so important for development of kids or musical instruments. It's because it's this combination of hard but fun. That's what allows us to get to mastery faster. So hard but fun. So the promise was positively impact any relationship, and so now we're going to get to the relationship portion of the presentation. What patterns should you break in a relationship? Well, the first thing we need to do is lose conflict-causing habits. So I'm going to give you 8 examples of habits that automatically cause conflict in a relationship, and then I'm going to give you examples of what I call the connection habits. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. So the thing about these habits is that conflict-causing habits are automatic, which really isn't a great way to be programmed. These happen automatically. Most of the time, the habits that cause friction in our relationships are automatic. They happen as a trigger to something happens. We're not even aware that they're happening. However, creating positivity, like I said before in a moment, the connection habits have to be either from a conscious choice or a habit. Now, when you have to make a conscious choice, remember I talked about that easy, is that it requires more effort, it requires more of your resources. And so making a conscious choice is harder. So as much as possible, if you can make these habits in your routine, you're way more likely to be successful. All right, so what are these things? I'm going to talk about this, but I love this how I describe how I discovered these habits. Okay, so I call them triple S tested. It started with myself. I looked back in my relationship and I thought, what are the things that I know are successful for me in my relationship? So all of the habits that I'm going to talk about today are things that I do personally and that work for me. Now, I knew that just because they worked for me, they wouldn't work for everybody. So I also looked for social proof. I looked for, surveys and read articles. I talked to friends. We did, did case studies and studies or pilot projects to make sure that not only were these effective for me, but they were effective for other people. But the last thing is that each one is scientifically proven to be successful. So I looked at study after study, and I wasn't just looking for surveys of couples, 100 couples say. I was looking for brain scans. I was looking for measurements of hormones. I was looking for EKGs, heart rates, all of it. So I wanted to see a positive physical response. And so all of these habits are proven by science to create a positive physiological response when you practice them. So that was the test I used for each of these habits. So the number one habit, here we go. The moment of truth. We got 8 of these, and I'm not going to go in depth with each of them because the reality is that I could talk about each one for an hour, and so I'm just going to touch on them, but hopefully give you enough of a nugget of what they are so that you can go and use them today. So the first one is expressing gratitude. Now, many of you understand or have heard a lot about gratitude. Practicing gratitude is one of the best ways to increase your well-being, to make you feel good. Now, I define gratitude a little bit differently. In a relationship, it's about thanking someone for who they are and how they do things. And when you do that, it elevates that thank you beyond just simple appreciation. And for example, instead of saying thank you for doing the dishes, you might say thank you for doing the dishes and making sure that every counter is clean and it's spotless every time. It really makes me feel good about going into the kitchen. Now, I know that's not a huge difference, but that thank you now has just been elevated. And this is actually one of the most important habits for successful couples. And it really is about thanking them for who they are. Making sure you're paying attention to their character. What kind of a person would go to such great lengths to make sure that the kitchen was spotless? Someone who's committed, someone who's generous, someone who is caring. And recognizing them for those traits is incredibly important. So when you thank them for who they are, that sticks with them. The dishes is gone, but them knowing that you appreciate them for being generous and committed, that sticks around. And in fact, this is one of the habits that is most important for lasting success in couples. There's a fellow named Marcel Zettner out of the University of Geneva, and he reviewed 477 studies on compatibility, and this was the one habit that was the same, that was consistent for all couples that were lasting, is they never stopped seeing the good things in their partner. Now, the problem is that it is completely natural for at the beginning of our relationship to be like, notice all the good things and kind of ignore the bad things. But then over time, of course, the opposite happens. You start to notice the bad things and you start taking the good things for granted. And the automatic conflict creator is condemning. And this is when you go from, he never gets me a coffee, to he's being selfish, to he never gets me a coffee, he is selfish. And when you go from he's not condemning the action, but condemning the person, that's called condemnation, and it is incredibly detrimental to relationships. Now, of course, we accept our partners for who they are, but it's absolutely critical that we keep remembering the great things that we love about our partner. Now, some of you out there are going to look at some of these habits and go, man, I got that one nailed. And maybe you got them all nailed, and then good for you. But sometimes there's going to be some of these habits that I talk about, and you're going to go, oh yeah, I got to work on that one. So stay tuned. If this is one you got nailed, check out the next one. We'll see if we go. But that difference between recognizing for who they are and making sure you're still present each day to something new about what you love about them makes a huge difference. But it's not just about recognizing that. It's about communicating that to them so that they can get to experience that. And when you do that together, it's one of the fastest ways to generate the actual experience of love. Not the, I know that person loves me, but the actual physical experience where your body relaxes, you get the oxytocin and serotonin release, your heart rate goes down. So expressing gratitude. Like I said, I could talk about each of these for an hour, but I'm not going to. So the next one is giving your full attention. And I define this as mindfully listening to both the verbal and nonverbal communication you're receiving. Excuse me, I just got to take a glass of water here. This is one of the most important habits in sales. A lot of you, if you're fans of Eric, you might be involved in sales. Incredibly important skill. I read an article in the Huffington Post yesterday. Arianna Huffington was talking about how this is probably the most important leadership skill. But it's also incredibly important in your relationships because Gottman talks about bids in a relationship where you are asking for the attention of your partner. And in a healthy relationship, you give a positive response to that bid 5 times more often than you don't. And in a latest study I actually read from the Gottman was that it's 90% of the time you have a positive response, but 5 times more likely. Incredibly important. So just this one little automatic conflict creator of distraction can actually have a big detrimental impact on your relationship because that happy relationship ratio is 5 to 1. And consider this in all of your habits. We think that, we do one bad, one good, we're kind of, we're even Steven. But that's also one of the reasons why these habits are so important because we actually need to create way more positive interactions than negative just to be on the positive side. So if you really want to have that great feeling, that great connection, you probably have to do those habits way more than you think is practical. But it's not about big gestures. It's not about huge. It's about those little moments to making sure that you're creating that positivity in a relationship. So 5 to 1. So think about it. If you can stop being distracted in your relationship and you eliminate that just once, that makes it so that you don't have to have 5 positive interactions to make up for that one negative. And distraction, man, that happens like that in this day and age. I mean, we got our phone, we got our kids, we got our business. So incredibly important habit to develop. The last one, not the last one, but the next one I'll talk about, super important for that kind of honeymoon feeling, is loving touch. Now, I don't recommend this one in the corporate workplace. I find that it's been problematic when I do. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I don't recommend that. But in your romantic relationships, touch is incredibly important for our well-being. It has a big impact on our health. And when we don't have it, our bodies kind of wither. So the challenge for most couples is that they collapse sexual touching and loving touch. Now, sex, that's complicated. For many people, they got all kinds of stuff going on when it comes to sex, but love is simple. But when you always put those together, what can happen is one person who can start to feel unsafe. And when you feel safe, and you're being touched with love, it has a wonderful effect. It reduces your heart rate. You get oxytocin and serotonin. Tons of great stuff happen when that happens. But if you feel unsafe, if you feel a little bit nervous, then you actually have the opposite effect. So it's incredibly important for couples to make sure that they don't collapse those two things. Of course, you can at some times, but you also want to make sure that, I'm not saying no, they're different things. Sometimes you want to do loving touch and sexual touch at the same time, but not always. Make sure that you're mixing that in. So the other thing you need to know is it takes about 30 seconds for your bodies to start to really dig into that physiological response. So many times couples will give that short kiss, a little hug, and they won't actually mix that conversation, or that the length of time in. So make sure you're taking the time. Hug for more than 30 seconds, just as an experiment. And watch what happens to both your bodies. Literally, your heart rates start to meld together. Your shoulders will relax. It's just one of those things. So make sure that when you're doing loving touch, that you're doing it for at least 30 seconds, because that's what science shows where you start to get the biggest benefits. All right. Oh, so the conflict creator before the show, going back here, is being suppressed. And that's kind of what happens is if you feel like there's danger in the touch, is you're going to suppress that response. And I know that happens. I mean, of course, it happens to me. It happens to everybody. That moment where you kind of want to reach out, but you don't, and so you stop yourself. So now that's not, you don't go in your mind, oh, I want to stop this impulse. That's just there, and that's why these conflict creators are automatic. Something to overcome. It just happens immediately. All right, next habit is appreciation. And this is just defined for thanking people for their acts of service. So I've made a distinction between expressing gratitude and expressing appreciation, because it's that important to do both of them. Now, appreciation is one of the top 5 reasons why relationships end. And, if top 3 reasons if you eliminate betrayal and abuse. So really important to have that in your relationship. Your partner will do things for you that that you don't notice, that tons of things to make your life better. So make sure you're thanking them. It's also one of the top reasons why employees leave. And a research by HubSpot said that 69% of employees said that they would work harder if they were better appreciated. So I know that you say thank you when people do things for you. But when you supersize your appreciation in your relationships at work and at home, it has a huge impact. Let me give you 2 examples. One is a relationship at home, and one is a relationship at work. So the first one is a relationship at home. So one of the people I was working with made a big mistake, and it really impacted the finances of their family. And so, I mean, their relationship was really on the rocks, and they were talking separation and maybe even divorce. So he was really keen on making a difference. Well, he tried a bunch of stuff, and conversations. They were working on a whole bunch of different things, and he tried this habit. He worked on the connection habit appreciation, and after just 3 weeks of doing the habit of just appreciating her, the ice started to melt. And then she sent him an email that said, you are the love of my life. I don't want to leave you. We're going to work this out. And it just completely transformed what he'd been working on for months in just a few weeks, just by focusing on appreciating what she did for him every day. And this is what I mean by it solves big, complicated problems without actually working on them. Now, of course, there's still communication, but when you have that connection, those communications are way easier. Because the reality is, taking people for granted or being oblivious for what people do isn't something people do on purpose. Like your manager at work is busy with his own thing, his demanding time. He's got his own challenge and own insecurities, and so he's focused all on that. And so when he asks you to do something, him not being appreciative isn't because he doesn't want to be. It's because he's focused on other things. It's automatic. Now let me give you an example, a work example, how this works. So I was working with a company, and there was a senior manager. 2 large companies had merged, and so this manager had her team expanded. So they had the people from the old company and the people from the new company. Well, the people from the new company wouldn't include her in emails or meetings where she was really responsible for the outcomes. But so she talked to them about it. She was working with them for weeks, and had meetings about it. It was something that was ongoing. It was an ongoing frustration for her. She just wouldn't get included. Well, so she does the challenge, works on appreciation. After 2 weeks, she was thrilled. Lo and behold, she gets started including in emails. They start inviting her to all the important meetings. and she didn't have to go to that next level of discipline and making sure that people know. So just by focusing on appreciation, she solved the problem again that has been bothering her for months, and it solved it in a way that made things way better for the team. So those are two examples. Now I can't go into all the examples for all the habits, otherwise we'll be here all night. But acts of service, I think that it makes perfect sense. When you do nice things for people, they'll do nice things for you. And in fact, if you want people to do nice things for you, then work on the habit of appreciation and be really good at it. Because when people feel really appreciated, that's when they get that dopamine release. That's when they get that moment of positivity. And so now they associate doing nice things for you as a craving for a reward. So they start to want to do nice things for you. So appreciation is a great way to get people to do nice things for you. Acts of service, ultimately, again, we're not stingy because we don't want to do nice things for people. Oftentimes, like, I'm forgetful. I focus when I get hungry. I need to eat, and so I go and get my drinks. I go and get my food, and I sit down on the couch and I look over, and of course, there's my wife there, also hungry and thirsty, and I go, oh yeah, and so she really taught me about how generous you can be with acts of service. So now I'm starting to build that habit in where I'm making a piece of food and I go, oh yeah, I'm making food. Does my wife want some? When you can build that into your routine, man, it makes a huge difference. So I go from offending her, wondering why there's such darkness on the couch, why we're so cold, to now actually having a great moment together. This is one of my favorite habits. Share success and celebrating. And when I was talking with Eric, it is one of the secrets to his success, this building celebration into your procedure. Now, it's one of those things that I find people don't hardly ever do. And it can have a major impact. I'm just looking at my notes here. So constant celebration is incredibly important for your mood. Think about this. This is if you are, an executive who has a really demanding job, or if you're working all the time and you come home to your family. So many times we come home and we're bringing our work stress with us, and we walk through that door and we get this cheerful hello, but we're in our cloud of that problem that's persisting. Because how humans operate is we work on a problem, solve it, next problem. Work on a problem, solve it, next problem. And we very rarely take the time to say, man, I did that. I had success there. We've made progress. And the other thing that happens is we have expectations that we're going to get a specific result, and then we only get partway there, and so then we go, oh, and then we're just in this negativity, when in fact we made progress. So identifying, communicating, and enjoying progress together is incredibly important for your work success, but it's also great for your home. Having that habit, here's a golden nugget for you. When you get home from work, or or if you're home and you end your workday, as so many of us are doing right now, take a moment, and when you say, how was your day, make sure you focus on sharing something successful about your day. It's so easy to complain or share about something negative that happened. This happened, because that's top of mind. That's what we remember. But, think about this question. If I asked you to share 3 things that were successful about your day, some of you are going to say, yep, I did this, and I did this, and that's good. You've built in the habit of recognizing your success. But for many people, you ask them that, and it's like, they're just flabbergasted. I don't, and then it takes time. But there's a really cool thing, just try this as an experiment. Ask people, hey, what was successful about your day? And they're gonna have this reaction like, what? And then you're gonna see their body literally change. They're gonna relax, and they're gonna find something, and they're gonna say, well, actually we were working on this problem and we fixed it around noontime. And you literally can transform their physiology just by asking this question. So this is one of my favorite habits. I know I said wouldn't spend time on all of them, but I just had to take a bit of time on this one. Next one is acknowledging the positive. And this, if you want to get better at doing compliments, then this is the one for you, because this is about that really scanning the environment for what's going positive. We're automatically notice what's what's not working, what the problems are, because that's what keeps us safe. That's our biological drive. We look at the environment and say, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. That's automatic. Now, looking for what's right, you got to choose that, or it's got to be a habit. So it's got to be embedded into your routine. Okay, last one. This is the last one. So being encouraging. And this is actually way harder than you think. It's not, I mean, sure, it's great to say you can do it. But I define this as telling people why you think they will succeed. And so when you can tie your wishes for them to the future, to a character trait, or to how they do things, then that's going to really impact their belief. And this is so important for your children. It's important for your employees. And in fact, studies have shown that partners who have this trait, who are encouraging to their partners will advance faster and earn up to 30% more. So just developing this habit in your relationship can actually earn you more money over time. Really important. Now, the other side of the conflict trait is criticism. It's so easy to see what people should be doing. It's so easy to criticize. And, in reality, you need some criticism in order to improve. But someone like Tom Brady has one coach, maybe two coaches, and millions of fans. The top performers in the world have way more fans than coaches. And this is a golden nugget that's so important. Advice without permission is criticism. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. Advice without permission is criticism. And no, just because you're married to them or just because they're your children doesn't mean you automatically have permission. Because the subtle message when you're giving advice is, you need my help. And now, if you are a coach or you're well-meaning and you're used to doing this all the time, people will get used to it and they'll get over it. They'll know, oh yeah, like that, like my mother's giving me advice again. That's just the way she shows me her love. It's something you need to get over though. And at times when you're in a bad mood, that advice might trigger you. So it's just one of those things. If you can eliminate that criticism, oh man, I'm telling you, your life becomes way better. There's nothing to get over. The positivity just reigns. I want to show this last graph here, a study where it showed that the top performing teams had a ratio of 5.6 praise to criticism. Now, this study went on to say that criticism is really important for poor performers. So they say that if you have a team of salespeople, the bottom 50%, they need criticism to improve. They need help. But the top 50%, criticism rarely helps. They already know what they need to do. There's different reasons. So if you up your level of praise and encouragement to the top 50%, research has shown that that is a way better way to improve performance. So eliminate the criticism for the top performers. They don't need it. But the more you encourage them, the more they'll go. That's it. 8 habits. Now, I know I went fast. So there's an assessment on the homepage of my website, which I'll put in the chat later. You can do an assessment. It's 28 questions. You can figure out which of the habits do I do really well and which are the ones you might want to work on. So I can send that to you in a minute. Now you know. But of course, knowing isn't enough. There's no secret to how to lose weight. You burn more calories than you eat. But the reality is that only new actions create new results. And so now I just want to show you how to actually make sure you're taking action so you get the relationships that you really want. So what I did is I built this technology, a mobile platform that helps you integrate positive relationship habits into your routine in just a few minutes a day. And with your permission, I'm just going to go through how I do that. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I've given you some great nuggets, but I'm just going to give you this great thing, and if you want to learn how to help your team improve behavior, this is how I did it and how I use it to work with teams and people to change their behavior. So it'll give you some insight into that, a really easy way to make sure that you can make change happen. So the first thing is daily inspiration. The reality is that nobody's got time to read a ton of material, but if you can give them a perfect nugget so that they know what to focus on that day, this step-by-step process, that's the way to make it easy. So when the motivation comes, they know exactly what to do. So this daily inspiration. So in the app, when you do a challenge, you get a little nugget of what to focus on that day. The next thing is customized prompts, and I can't stress how important this is. Getting a reminder to do something in the morning that for an activity that you're going to do at 3 o'clock is not incredibly helpful. But if you can get a reminder to take action right when that action is happening, that's going to make a massive difference. And so with our habit stack feature, what we train you how to do is create prompts when you're most likely to take action. So after I sit down at my desk at 9 o'clock, I'll send a message of appreciation to my employee. So sit down at your desk, minds and other things, boom, you get a reminder. Oh, all right, appreciation. I'm working on appreciation today. So then you send that message of appreciation. Next day, sit down at your desk, go, oh, yeah, appreciation. Got to send, they said to make sure you're this kind of appreciation. So you know exactly how to do it. Next day, sit down at your desk, get a reminder. Next day, you sit down at your desk, boom, now you're like, oh, yeah, this is when I do appreciation. And so by the end of the challenge, now you don't need the app anymore. I'm making myself obsolete here. But you get to have that particular habit built into your routine. Your routine becomes the reminder. So important. The other thing that we have you do is rate or practice and celebrate. Research shows that if you want to develop a habit, the best way to do that is to track your progress. And this is because every time you do that, you're helping to build the neural pathways in your brain. Even if you didn't do the action, simply thinking about the action fires the same pathways. And so this is really important. So you rate your practice on a scale of 1 to 4, done and I'm satisfied, or wow, it was a special day, so that you can know how you're doing. But the other thing we do is really important, and it's I haven't seen it anywhere else, and it's about celebrating your practice for that day. Now, most of the time, when you're working on something, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I didn't do that. No, I could have done that better, and that was kind of awkward. And so you're going to want to write something like, oh, it wasn't as good as I could have done. But remember, that's counter to how habits actually work. When you have a positive association with your new behavior, you're tapping into how our brains actually work, which is a craving for a reward. So doing this daily gives that little boost of dopamine each day so that you start to associate doing this behavior with a positive response. And just to make it fun, because I always thought, oh man, I hated tracking my progress. This is how you earn points and prize. So we kind of make this a bit of a game. So we give away a monthly prize. Sometimes we do, an annual prize as well. Last year we gave away, or the year before we gave away a vacation. Each month we give away at least a $100 gift certificate to the restaurant or store of your choice. And it's just a way to kind of acknowledge. And here's how the prize entries work to make sure that you are taking action every day. So if you do one day where you rate and celebrate your practice, 1 prize entry. You do 5 days in a row, you get 5 extra prize entries. So boom, you get double. If you do it every day, all 7 days, you get an extra 5. So you can earn up to 17 prize entries in a week. And why do we do that? Because we want you to do it every day so you actually get the habit to happen. I don't want to make you rate your practice, but this takes about 30 seconds. So we're asking to do 30 seconds of work to get this habit integrated into your routine, and that's how we give you prize and reward printing. So like I said, we got monthly prizes, annual prize, points. Oh, I'm going to put Eric on the spot. I forgot to ask him about this, but we'll see if this happens. I think he'll say yes. So it's a guide to measure success. What we've noticed that people who get at least 100 points a week, and you can get about 150 out of the total week, the people who get at least 100 points are ones that are most likely who report success in the habit. Now, what I said is that anybody who gets 400 points in the first month will get an autographed copy of Eric's book. I don't know, Eric, can you unmute yourself? Are you willing to do that? I'll put you on the spot.
Yep, Arnold, anything for you, my friend, anything that will help motivate our community here. And you have a tremendous, well thought out program here, and he's going to give you guys an incredible price. So I encourage you guys to take action. Arnold, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Eric. All right. So The last thing, and this is in the couples version, there's two apps. One is the connection app, which is about working with your work colleagues, if you want to do all those kind of things, friends, family. And then we have an app for couples, so really focusing on couples. And I built this thing in for me because I got tired of trying to figure out how connected my wife felt to me. So I put this connection temperature. And so this ring here where at any moment you can send a message and you can set how connected you feel. So it's great. I just look at the app and in one glance I know, is she feeling connected to me or not? And if she's not, well, then I know to take action. You got your points up here so you can know you can build your points. You can also send cute messages, and these messages in the app, obviously there's tons of great messaging apps, but these ones just make sure they don't get lost. You know, the next time your partner checks in the app, they just have this little cute message waiting for them. It's just a way to kind of have that cute moment. So it's a great way to go. So there's a couple of ways to participate. There's a ton of challenges where they're focusing on one habit at a time. And this is, you know, if you're busy and you're like, you know, I want to work on this, but I got a ton of stuff going on, this is perfect for you because again, it's just literally like 90 seconds a day, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, you know, writing a quick message. It's so easy. And then you start building that in and you up your level. And then there's challenges, and this is great if you want to get results over time. But if you really want to kind of have that booster relationship, if you want to kind of like, okay, things are, you know, kind of on the rocks right now, I really want to give it a boost. Or maybe it's Valentine's Day. It's like, hey, honey, I did this thing. Let's do something really cool. It's gonna build up our connection habits, and you know, we're just gonna rock it. So you can work on challenges that build on multiple habits at once. These are the three habits that I suggest. The gratitude, full attention, and loving touch. Those three together, if you want that honeymoon feeling, man, they really make it go. When you're giving your full attention, anyway, put those habits together, you are going to enjoy yourself. So a couple of testimonials really quick. Dave and Ann have been married for 22 years. When they did that connection challenge, here's what they said. Dee and I are closer than we've been in years. It opened up the lines of communication again. The challenge has been amazing. We're both keen to keep doing this. Number 2, now, Rob just started his business. He's working 12-hour days, and the challenge now, many of you are just in that process now where you're working your tail off. And, you know you want to have a great relationship, but it's the end of the day, you're so tired, you know, and it's like, oh man, I don't have the same energy and effort to commit, but you want to have it all. This is how you have it all. Make sure that you're doing those tiny moments to stay connected. And what Tammy doesn't say in this testimonial is she just had a baby. So here they are, new job, or you know, starting a business, 12-hour work days, new baby. Man, so they loved this challenge because it really made sure that they stayed connected during this busy time. The other thing that you're going to get when you work with me is years of curated content. I focus the app on helping people form the habits because that's going to have the biggest impact over time. But I also found all this great content that I wanted to share. So what I do is I send you the information in email. Sometimes it's embedded in the challenges, but things like the best ways to escape an argument, why feelings are unreliable, what counterintuitive actions make arguments worse. Now this was one that I was doing, and so for example, appealing to logic was the one that I always use in my life. Well, let me get this straight. First we did this, and then we did this, and then we did this, and now that. And you're telling me this? Don't try and win an argument that way. It doesn't work. What is the optimal speed of touch? Definitely something you want to know. How to hug to eliminate stress. Hey, I gave you that one already. The best way to respond to your partner's news. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. And what is the 90-10 ratio for a great sex life? And the most important predictor of stability and satisfaction in marriage. So if you want all these great content, obviously I can't go through all that today, but you get that when you work with me in my programs. So the content testimonial, this is Sandy. You know, talk about the 4 ways to respond to news. There's active destructive, passive destructive, passive constructive, and active constructive. And what they found is only active constructive actually has a positive impact in relation. Everything else has negative. And so she realized this. I explained it. She's like, man, it's so good. I go, oh yeah, should I give active constructive then right after active destructive? So when you did that, so it made a huge difference to their relationship. I threw this in here because it's so important right now. So many people are stressed. I mean, I don't know what your circumstances are. I know many people are working really hard, And, I just put my heart goes out to everybody who's really impacted by this pandemic. We're all lonely. We're all stressed. None of us are, getting a chance to really hang out with our friends, depending on where you are in the world. And when your relationship isn't going well, there's nothing that increases your stress more. At least for me, when relationships are going badly, whether it be at work or at home, man, it just eats me up. And so that was one of the reasons why I focused so much on this, because I have big plans, and I needed to have my relationship just work. And so that's what I'm going to help you with. So stress, and I don't know if you know this, but stress is linked to the 6 leading causes of death. 7 out of 10 doctors visits are stress related. So, I'm zooming along here because I know that I really respect your time and I want to make sure, but really, what are your options if you want to improve your relationship skills? Coaching or therapy? Highly recommend that. It's one of the most effective ways to make a change, to improve your skills, is to hire a coach, because the tips and the expertise and reminders are built in. The challenge is it's expensive, and so many people can't afford to do that all the time. And so depending on who the coach is, it can cost you thousands of dollars. Or you can participate in workshops and seminars like this. All of you here are committed to excellence because you're here listening to me. And so that's fantastic. But sometimes these workshops or seminars cost money. They take time. And if you want to go like a weekend workshop, fantastic, let's do it. Sometimes hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And many times, all of these things are great, but they don't actually have a lasting impact. So they have great information, but none of them actually help you take action. So it's that combination of both. I got tired of giving people great information and then not seeing them change because they didn't take action. So I focused everything that I built on helping people to take action. So the in-app pricing, when people buy it and you download the apps, I built it all on a mobile platform. I don't even know if I mentioned that. So it's a mobile platform, so it's with you wherever you go. And if in the app, if you want to buy a lifetime membership, it's $399. A lot of people pay the annual subscription, and it's $299 a year. But of course, I'm going to make you a special offer. If you want a lifetime membership, you can get it for the price of an annual subscription. But that's not all, because of course, this is Eric, and so I wanted to do a fantastic deal for Eric. So, if you act now, in the next 15 minutes, you're going to get, I got a typo here, get an unlimited lifetime access for one payment forever. So you can take your time and work on any habit. You can work on all the habits over time for $147. Now, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and so my system is set up to receive Canadian dollars. So if you're in the US, and I know many of you are, that's Canadian dollars. So really, this is about $115 US. So a one-time payment, unlimited access to all the programs, work on one habit at a time, take your time, leave it for a year, come back, whatever you want. I'm always loading new programs in. I'm always bringing experts in for more information. So that's the option. I'm going to throw the chat. I'm going to throw the link in the chat now. Got a few more things to say, but if you want it, you got 15 minutes from the time that you go. So go ahead if you're interested in the program. I'm just going to go through a few more things here because I got 3 more bonuses for you. So number 1 is not only unlimited access to the Connection app for couples, but also the Connection app. So you are going to work on all of your work-focused challenges. You want to build leadership skills. You want to advance in your career faster. These are all the soft skills that leaders look for in people to advance them for leadership material. This is the essence of emotional intelligence. Increase sales performance. Now, I can't tell you how I use this in my prospecting. I practice the connection habits. I share appreciation. I be encouraging. And you can't tell you the difference it makes for a message that says, hey, you want to connect versus, hey, congratulations on your accomplishments, and just being something positive. So if you want to increase your sales performance, a really great way to do that is implement these habits into your sales. And increased influence. Hey, if people like you, you are going to have more influence. Bonus number 2, that's a 2-for-1 deal. You're not only going to access for you get access for your partner. So that's one price, 2 people. And the last thing is you know, I've had a ton of success doing this for corporations and for businesses and for teams. And this is the first time I'm doing this for the general public. But normally what I do with the team is I'll do a launch training where I go in and I make sure that they're powerfully set up for success. They know exactly what's in it for them to take action. I help them choose the right habit, give them technical guidance. And so I'm going to offer that to this group here. So anybody who buys the lifetime membership, I'm going to start working with you in a challenge. You know, many of you might be like, oh, this sounds good, but my partner will never go for it. Well, this is the perfect thing. Invite your partner, get them to have the same information you've got today. The other thing I'm going to give you is unlimited email support. I want to make sure that you are getting exactly what you need to be successful. So you send me an email and I'll just pay weekly updates about what it is that you need to make that happen. So those are the 3 bonuses. Unlimited lifetime access, the connection app for couples, the connection app, $147 Canadian, and I'm going to give a 60-day money back guarantee. So there's nothing to lose. If you've given it an honest shot, you know, not just like I downloaded, I don't want it anymore, but give it a shot. And if you gave it a shot and you tried it and you're like, you know what, it's not making any difference, I'll give you money back. Because I'm not interested in taking your money. I'm interested in you having fantastic relationships both at home and at work. So you got 3 options in my opinion. You can try and implement the changes on your own, and this is why I designed this webinar this way. I wanted you to win. If you're the type of person who goes, you know what, I know how to do that, I'm going to take this information and run with it, I wish you every success. I know that for most of us, we learn something, we forget about it, nothing changes. I don't want that for you. What I want is you learn it and you actually get the changes so you get the success. Because our relationships are never a priority until they are. You know what I mean? And so if you want to make sure that, you know, you want to avoid those times where you have to do it, now you want to make sure to do it. So this is the easy way to do it. So you can decide to do nothing and keep consuming info, like the almost wins. I'm taking action but not taking chances. You know, getting uneducated opinions. What do you think I should do about this problem? Or work on the wrong problem. Keep focusing on the issues instead of making sure your fundamentals are sound. Or you can get everything included in the connection apps without spending thousands of dollars in coaching or therapy, without spending hours attending webinar, that's my job, or reading books, without having to learn complicated new systems, without having to make a significant change to your daily routine. Just get it all. Now, I'm going to get your questions in a second here, but just imagine, you know, you really haven't got a lot to lose here. Like what if just you did one habit and you dropped some of that conflict causing stuff and you really built in appreciation, and that you know helped you to meet the girl or guy of your dreams. Completely worth it. What if all it did was made you one more sale a year because you mixed in some positivity in your interaction? Boom, paid for it in spades. What if you could consistently create that honeymoon feeling with your partner? Here's a secret. You know, a lot of scientists and researchers talk about how you know, it's natural to go from the honeymoon phase to the companion phase in a relationship, but there's about 10% of couples who never leave the honeymoon phase in a relationship, and those are exactly the couples that I studied. Yes, the app's available for iPhones, so it's at the App Store as well as Google Play, so it's native to both. And you know, if you want to be an influential, a well-liked, and effective leader, this is another thing that you can do. So if you want to improve your leadership skills, you know, you think about this, that being encouraging. Let's say you are 10% more encouraging because of this app, and you help your team take action that they wouldn't have taken had you not been encouraging. Man, you pay for that in spades. This is a tiny investment to work on habits that are going to pay off for the rest of your life. And if it just helps you advance fast in your career, man, I'm telling you, $147 Canadian is a small price to pay for all that. So thank you very much for taking the time. I'm just going to answer